Welcome, everybody, and we'll start today with the roll call. Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Schenk. Chair Richards.
Here.
Director Camacho.
Here.
Vice Chair Miller. Assembly Member Arembula. Director Perea.
Here.
Director Gilmetti.
Present.
Director Escutia. Director Williams. Senator Gonzalez. Director Cohen.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. And we at the dais and those who are listening, we want to welcome back Director Cohen, who's been away for a few months, expanding the size of her family. So welcome. Just by one. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. If I can ask Director Gilmetti to lead. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
for which it stands,
one
nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will now move on to public comment. Mr. Secretary, if you'd please advise the people here and those who are listening or watching how to address the board this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. Before we begin public comment for the High-Speed Rail Board of Directors meeting, I would like to go over some important information. For members of the public who have joined us in person and wish to provide public comment, you will be called upon in the order that we have received your card. If you're joining the meeting via Zoom and wish to provide public comment, please raise your hand using the feature in the bottom left of your screen. Or if you are dialing in by phone, pressing the number 2 will raise your hand and put you into the queue. Speakers will be called upon in the order their hands are raised. Once you are in the queue and your name is called, please click the prompt on your screen to allow the microphone to be unmuted. If you are joining by phone, we will call upon you by the last 4 digits of your number. At that point, you will hear the message that your phone is being unmuted. Each speaker will be given 2 minutes to speak. I will remind you when you have 15 seconds remaining. When it is your turn to speak, please slowly and clearly say your first and last name, and if applicable, state the organization you are representing. Mr. Chair, we will begin with the in-person speakers, and our first speaker is Keith Dunn.
Good morning, sir, and welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. It's a pleasure to be here. I have to say I'm a bit conflicted today as an Irish optimist in the belief that everything can always be worse. I'm here to say, wow, it's great to be wrong. What a day. 6 months ago, if you'd have told me that one of our chief opponents and powerful member of Congress would be announcing his retirement and California would be on the verge of receiving $6 billion, I'd have said you're crazy. But wow, I love being wrong. But this is the effort that has been long coming, and I need to commend your staff, your CEO, and also thank the governor who has been tirelessly out there whipping this up and pushing this project. Having just recently returned from a trip abroad, I can tell you the demand for high-speed rail across the world where it's been operating is growing. There's a waiting list for the tunnel from London to Paris. They're talking about expanding opportunities for others to come in and build. It's clear that the world wants high-speed rail, and California is going to be the first to deliver here in the United States. It's a great day. I can't underscore enough the importance of the hard work that your staff puts in at every level. But I also want to call out my fellow Irishman and say what a great job he's done at the helm. There's been a lot of naysayers. All of you have been aware of this and seen this, but you put your head down, you do the work, and the project will rise up. And nothing says that more than an award of $3 billion. So I just am here really today to say congratulations. I've been involved in this project for a very long time. And today is one of those days that you can look back on with a lot of pride And I just want to make sure that we all take a moment to celebrate that because it's a great day. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we'll now move to the Zoom participants. Once again, if you are joining the meeting via Zoom and wish to provide public comment, please use the raise your hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. Or if you are dialing in by phone, pressing the number 2 will raise your hand and put you into the queue. Speakers will be called on in the order that their hands are raised. Once you're in the queue and your name is called, please click the prompt on your screen to allow your microphone to be unmuted. If you are joining by phone, we will call upon you by the last 4 digits of your number. At that point, you will hear a message that your phone is being unmuted. Each speaker will be given 2 minutes, and I will remind you when you have 15 seconds remaining. When it is your turn to speak, please slowly and clearly say your first and last name, and if applicable, state the organization you're representing. Mr. Speaker, our first speaker is Frank Quintero.
Welcome, Mr. Quintero.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and authority members. Just want to say thank you for the past 2 meetings that we've had at the city of Merced. One was a town hall meeting, which we had close to 100 participants. It was nice to say that there was standing room only. People left feeling good about the high-speed rail project. Their questions were getting answered. And even those that had maybe some questions that the answers weren't favorable, they still appreciated having the opportunity to speak. Last week, we had another meeting with high-speed rail staff, the consultants. They introduced us to 2 options of our future platform, and we were excited to see the concepts. A lot of ideas were shared by our stakeholders, and we just look forward to working with you as the authority and the staff and moving forward with the platform and our station in downtown Merced. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Roland.
Welcome, Mr. LeBlanc.
Hello again, directors. So what I'd like to do is to very briefly clarify a comment made by Mr. Keith-Dunn as to what's actually going on in Europe right now. As you know, there is a link between London and Paris, but currently there's only one operator, which is Eurostar, which operates, I think right now about 29 trains a day. And there is massive competition about multiple operators who want to operate over the same infrastructure. So what's actually being built right now has got nothing to do with building a high-speed line, which has been the, let's say 15 years. What they're building is additional capacity in the bookends because the stations are currently designed cannot possibly accommodate all these operators. So thank you for the opportunity to clarify that, and I hope that's something that you will bear in mind in the future. I think moving forward, the only way for this, the numbers to add up here is that you got to start looking at a competition over the line, see if you can start bringing more operators. And if so, if anything needs to be done on the bookends to accommodate the capacity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we have no other attendees that would like to provide public comment.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to shuffle up the agenda a little bit because of schedules. Before we do, just a brief comment on what one of our speakers mentioned and what we've all read about with regards to the grant that's been received by the California High-Speed Rail Authority. As you would well guess, this is the result of a lot of hard work from a lot of people, and a lot of thanks are due. Certainly, the administration in Washington, President Biden, his head of infrastructure, Mitch Landrieu, for making the decisions or directing or having something to do with what occurred yesterday, as well as the leadership in California and from California. Governor Newsom has been incredibly helpful, engaged, and put it all on the line for the importance of this award for this project. Beyond Governor Newsom, the leadership in Sacramento or in Washington, representing us, Senator Padilla, the late Senator Feinstein, who hopefully this will become one of her legacies also. Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker Emerita, who has been unbelievable for the most of the entire year in trying to ensure that the message was out that this project was important, not just to California, but important to the whole idea of high-speed rail in the United States. Beyond that, a congressman that it may be not well known in lots of places, but is known well in California, and that's Congressman Jim Costa, who was responsible for some of the early legislation in California that established high-speed rail, who has been an amazing guide and director in Washington for this project. Beyond that, Secretary Buttigieg, our Secretary of DOT, we can't say much more than thank you. And we recognize he understands the importance of this project. And the FRA Administrator, Amit Bose, who's been engaged on a daily basis with Brian Kelly and the staff here at High Speed Rail on helping to ensure that this project meets the goals that were contemplated 15 years ago. And then you can't say enough about what's happened here locally, and that's and that means within the authority itself, the leadership of Brian Kelly, who has given it all in causing this day to occur as often as we had discussed the potential issues and problems. A very reasonably small pot of money, in which we generated, I think, about 25% of that in the $3.1 billion for this project. And I can tell you that he's lived with it day and night, and on the phone quite often. In addition to that, and to hopefully having not forgotten anybody, to my colleagues on the board who have stepped beyond the dais here and made the calls that are important and necessary to get things done for these months that this has been in process. Thank you all, and it's a step way above what's required, but massively appreciated. And every one of these people who have been involved in this are responsible for what was announced, at least prematurely, yesterday and today in the media. Because it is, what is it called? It is embargoed. So at any rate, and finally, I want to mention one other person that is really an incredible leader here in California and oversees this project, and that's our CalSTA secretary, and that's Tokes Amashakan. Sorry. He's been amazing, and I think he's worn the telephone out between here and Washington, but for he and for the governor to have done what they've done to make this day possible. They've put, I don't want to say new life, because the life was here, but they've certainly put some vitamins in the mix. And this is a great day for this project and for all involved, and for all of you who have expressed your interest in this project and your criticism. It's a confirmation of the importance of the project and where we're going to go with it in California. With that, I hope I haven't stepped on the things that Brian will talk about in his update, but I just wanted to make sure all these people were acknowledged, and everybody in the authority, the 300 and some odd people who staff the authority and all the consultants. It's an amazing job, and one that we were really concerned about through the entire process, whether or not we would see a day like this. But to actually have received exactly, in fact, slightly more than what our CEO, Brian Kelly, put together in the application is pretty amazing. Great job, Brian. Okay, with that, we will, yes. Yes, that's well deserved. Anyway, we'll now move on to this agenda. First, we will take very quickly is the agenda minutes from November the 2nd. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second. Okay, we have a motion second. The roll, please.
Director Schenk, Chair Richards,
Here, our yes.
Director Camacho,
Yes.
Vice Chair Miller, Director Perea,
Yes.
Director Gumeti, Director Escutia, Director Williams, Director Cohen.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, the first item that we're going to deal with today, or the second item rather, is on your agenda. It's number 3. It's the consideration of providing approval to execute and award the Rail Systems Engineering Services Support Contract. Good morning, Mr. Armistead, and welcome.
Good morning. And as you mentioned, it is a very exciting time. We're so happy. This item is to consider approval to execute the award of the Rail Systems Engineering Contract. And as was mentioned, I'm Bruce Armstead, Chief of Rail and Operations Delivery. Next slide, please.
Can you speak a little bit closer
Yep.
to your, thank you.
Okay, as I mentioned, we're asking for your consideration to approve the ability to execute the Rail Systems Engineering Services Support Contract. Next slide, please. A summary of the contract is to provide a core group of rail engineers to support the authority in a partnering role with expertise in the items that you see there: traction power, catenary, signaling and train control, network integration, along with high voltage track stations, station integration, et cetera. They will also review the civil designs to ensure compliance with our design criteria manual and our requirements. They're going to ensure that all of our requirements are met and that no elements would interfere with rail construction, maintenance, and/or our operations. They're going to respond to special requests. They're going to support us in the integration elements of the rail system from a requirements management perspective. They will also help us to manage the interfaces, again, from a requirements management perspective. They were going to provide oversight for the civil, track, and systems elements, along with the train sets and stations. And they're going to assist us with risk register and system safety for all the safety cases related to track, systems, train sets, stations, et cetera. Next slide, please. And this is a summary of the items I just mentioned, primarily track, systems, train sets, stations, and they're going to assist us with oversight from a requirements management perspective of the construction management of the rail contracts. Next slide, please. A little bit about the RFQ and the procurement overview. That was managed directly by authority staff, and it was a qualification-based procurement. It's governed by the government codes that you see there, along with our policies for RFQs and the applicable state and federal requirements. The small business and disadvantaged business goals were, as you see them there, 30% SB, small business utilization, 10%. And this RFQ went out prior to the board taking action to provide us new small business goes. So these contracts will be overseen under the old gold program, and all of those going forward will be overseen under the new program. Next slide, please. Implementation of that process. We released the RFQ in July. We received statements of qualifications in response to the RFQ from the firms you see there, Atkins North America and Network Rail Consulting. The offers were scored pursuant to the criteria in the RFQ. Both offers were invited to a discussion with the authority, and the discussions were scored as well. The final score was computed in accordance with what was in the RFQ. Next slide, please. And those final scores were computed and weighted, as you see there, 60% for the SOQ itself, 40% for the discussion, and the results were Network Rail Consulting being ranked number 1, Atkins North America being ranked number 2 by a very small margin, about 1.46 points. Peer-reviewed audit reviews were conducted, as was mentioned earlier, in the F&A meeting. And upon board action, we'll finalize and execute an agreement, and we're hoping to do that this month. We'll then collaboratively develop task orders for the initial activities in the scope. Next slide, please. Okay, this is an action item, and we're recommending approval in the this item in the associated resolution, which will authorize CEO to execute a 5-year, 4-month contract with Network Rail Consulting for an amount up to $73.2 million. And at this time, I'd like to try and answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Armistead?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question or comment.
Yes, Director Perea, please.
Yeah, thank you. And Bruce, thank you for taking the time yesterday to answer my questions. I just wanted to have a brief discussion with the board to clarify our discussion so them and the public knows. Because I know you were busy yesterday showing the train sets, and I do want to make an appointment with you to come up and see those. Pretty exciting.
Yeah, please do.
But Mr. Chairman and board, the question that I asked around this, and Bruce clarified, it had to do with the power of our system. And even though it's not directly a part of this, it's certainly related. And, you know, our discussion has been about being the first solar-powered high-speed rail system in the world, which I think is exciting. But I just wanted to make sure that the goal is achievable and that it's going to be planned in such a way that when we become operational, that it's all systems go, of course, with the redundancy of the electric grid. So Bruce, can you tell us just briefly how that process will flow, the decision making, et cetera, and how it ties into this?
Okay. The requirements management contract, they perform traction power simulations that look at the current draw from both PG&E and from the solar power and the battery electric storage systems. Those two systems will work together to provide us power for the running of the trains and all the auxiliary power that's needed. So this contract oversees the requirements. The delivery of those, we're looking at package 2 of the procurement strategy I delivered in July. We're still refining that and making sure that that's the smartest thing for the authority to have it in package 2. But right now it's in package 2, and the design of that will be overseen by the requirements manager to make sure that what they're designing meets our requirements. When we go to deliver that, we'd like to deliver them simultaneously so that we get the testing for both the battery electric system and the solar, along with the PG&E connections to the substation, so that all that happens behind the meter, we are in control of how those interfaces work, and we don't have contractual issues between those contractors. So in delivery, we like to test and commission them together so that we turn one off, we turn the other one on. Any challenges with moving from the connection to the grid to the connection with our battery electric storage system, we have one designer that's commercially responsible to make sure that interface happens properly. and my requirements manager, NRC, and I saw a representative here earlier. They will assist us with that.
Okay, and we have all the right of way in place to execute the actual delivery.
We have the right of way for the solar farms and for the Tractions Power substation.
Great, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve whenever it's appropriate.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and second. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Director Schenk, Chair Richards,
Yes.
Director Camacho,
Yes.
Vice Chair Miller, Director Perea,
Yes.
Director Gilmetti,
Yes.
Director Escutia, Director Williams,
Aye.
Director Cohen.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the motion carries.
Thank you, and please note that Director Williams has joined the meeting. Henry, thanks for the additional work on that. It's been helpful for the rest of us also. So I will now move on, ladies and gentlemen, to what was referred to as item number 4. This is the construction update, and Mr. Kelly.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I'm sorry that mic is far away from my mouth. I'm abnormally tall.
You are.
There you go.
Maybe we could get an abnormally tall
Yeah, that'd be good.
microphone.
Raise this.
If they could work on that for the next meeting, that would be really helpful because everybody has the
Fantastic.
same
Thank you.
problem.
Thank you.
Get our construction folks on that.
Yes.
Yeah. I could kneel, I suppose. But anyway, I'm here to do what I do twice a year with the board, typically in May and November. Obviously, we're doing a little bit later this year, but it's to provide that construction update on where we are on the project, really in the Central Valley. I'll be joined as we go through this for certain questions, I suppose, by Daniel Horgan, our Deputy COO, Bill Casey, who is our Chief Operating Officer, and Garth Fernandez from our Regional Director from the Valley, are all here to field any particular questions. But with that, I'm going to jump right in and just go through the current construction status for the project. I should also say that much of what you see here today will be incorporated in the chapters in our upcoming business plan that's due in February of 2024, the draft, that just reflect where we are in the Valley on the construction work. Okay, next slide, please. So first, reminding everybody, where we're heading, what we're trying to do, and that is get an operating segment, initial operating segment in the Central Valley. It's a 171-mile segment connecting Merced, Fresno, and Bakersfield. It's 171 miles long. As of today, it's 100% environmentally cleared. 119 miles are currently under construction, and we are advancing design for the 52 miles that are added to that 119, both the north extension to Merced and south to Bakersfield. We are also, as you heard earlier from the caller, the public comment from Merced, we're actively engaged in designing the Central Valley stations, and we're having community conversations in town halls to go over that with each city in which a station will be located. We're off and running really on the track and systems procurements now with the board approval to move forward on that design contract at our last hearing. We've also moved forward with the original qualifications for train procurement, which is a very exciting element for us, is to buy the first electrified high-speed trains for use in America and, possibly being manufactured in the Western United States. That would be exciting for all of us. And the goal, remember, our goal is initial operations between 2030 and 2033. Next slide. So, what have we been really actively trying to do over the last few years? And it's really making sure we have complete project definition because, it's next to impossible to advance if you haven't defined what you're trying to do. And so really over the course of the last several years, it's been a push to get all the necessary designs complete so we can identify the right of way you need, identify the utilities you got to move, and advance construction. And that's really what we've been grinding through in the 119 miles. So we execute change orders necessary to capture that full scope, and that's what we have been doing. I'm happy to report today that really all major commercial issues have been resolved. I mean, to be clear with the board, and I know the board knows this, we are in arbitration on one large item on CP23. We expect a preliminary decision from that arbitrator in February of 2024. And we'll continue to move through that. But largely all other major commercial issues through the 119 have been resolved. And that's a credit to the team who's worked so hard on that. Because those designs weren't well defined early on, the board knows we had some right-of-way acquisition issues. But again, this is another place with just keen focus from the team, really getting achievable goals in place. We've been able to manage the right-of-way process much better. As I stand before you today, about 98.5% of the right-of-way for the 119 miles is complete. You'll see in a later slide of 2,300 parcels we need. We have about 37 left to go. So we're really moved through that, and right-of-way is in many ways no longer the challenge it once was for the authority. The other issue, of course, is key third-party issues we have relative to utility relocations, irrigation district, things that we have to work through, particularly in the valley. We identified originally 68 third-party issues that we started tracking in 22 and 23. 66 out of those 68 have been resolved. There are 2 that we continue to work through, one relative to AT&T, another relative to a irrigation district in Kern County, and we continue to work through those issues. But again, it's the fact that we now identify what we need to get done, we manage it, we monitor it, and we can report where we are on it, which is really been helpful in advancing all of the work. Just updating some of the design and construction activities. We have worked with the design build contractors to resequence work and mitigate schedule impacts. We have a finalized revised baseline schedule for CP1 and CP4. Those are done, and we are continuing to work to finalize that on 2-3 as we go forward. Next slide, please. Again, just a picture of the right-of-way status update. I mentioned where we are, but that's kind of what it looks like today. That is what it looks like today. In the last 5 years, we've acquired nearly 900 parcels. We have 37 left to go. In totality, we need 2295, almost 2,300 parcels. And just to give you all some perspective of that, if you think about Caltrans, which is an institution that covers transportation for the entire state of California, in a typical year, Caltrans might need to acquire between 400 and 500 parcels. Statewide, all projects in the state of California. In our segment, our 119, we're at 2,300, which is worth 5 years of right-of-way at Caltrans. And so we're coming to the end of it. It's been a heck of a process, but we're almost there. And again, great credit to the management team, and particularly Dennis Kim, who has headed up our right-of-way efforts. So this is a good result, and we want to bring this to conclusion in 2024. Next slide, please. This is just more detail, but it's pictures of where we are. You see where we were in March at the beginning of this year. I think just before my last update to the board, we had 78 parcels remaining. Through October, we're down to 37 left. And again, this doesn't incorporate what we'll achieve in December, and we'll add that to the mix both for November and December. So we're really getting to the end, and that's encouraging. Next slide, please. I want to talk about construction package 4. This is the one that we identified in 2023 for completion during this calendar year. And then, as happens all the time, I guess it's Murphy's Law, after several years of drought in spring, we were hammered with serious rainfall that affected some of the work on the ground for both CP4 and CP23, caused us some additional time and delay. Made it a little bit more difficult to shut down irrigation districts because they finally had water to move. And so it really constrained some of our work windows. We've worked through that very well, though, on CP4. And of the 22.5-mile segment that we need to get structures and guideways done for, we're really down to a 400-foot section left. And this is 400 feet out of a 22.5-mile segment is really tied to final land rights issues that we're working through with the North Kern Water Storage District. We're hoping to continue to work with them on those issues. It's really a timing of when the land rights can be solved and when we can finish the work. And we're trying to work with them on that sequencing to get this done. But I expect we'll get this solved relatively soon. Next slide, please. Again, that's just sort of our scorecard you're all familiar with for CP4. You see virtually everything is 100% complete. We're down to the very end of this project, and there's about 98% left overall contract on expenditure. We will have some issues at the end of this, including some small cleanup issues we'll have to complete on the project, as well as I'm forgetting the term, but the final sort of close out things that we need, small construction issues, cleanup issues on site that we'll have to complete. And then we also go through a quality document control process called the QMDP to make sure that we have all the certification documents, that each of the structures are up to our standards. Next slide. Again, the remaining risk on 4, I mentioned the 400-foot section, and that's what we're working through. And the authority, including participation from the board chair and myself, we're engaged with the North Kern Water Storage District, and we're working hard to just, again, resolve the outstanding land right issue for this final 400-foot section. And again, expected we'll conclude this soon. And that will then conclude construction package 4. We'll be sequencing it the right time for the track installation, starting with CP4. Next slide, please. Construction package 1, which is the 32-mile, next slide, is the 32-mile stretch in the northern part of the 119 miles. This goes right through downtown Fresno. Of the 1,836 utilities we have to move, about 1,000 of them are here on CP1 and mostly through downtown. It's 32 miles, 19 grade separations, 3 viaducts, 2 trenches. A substantial completion is consistent with what we reported in the project update report in 2023, November of 2026. We are working with the contractor today on moving that date as much as we can, as soon as we can, to bring it forward. And we'll continue to do that through monthly partnering meetings. Next slide. Again, the scorecard for CP4. All the designs are 100% complete. The right-of-way parcels are at 98%. Utility relocations complete or in progress, about 82% as of today. And this 85% of structures, 63% of the guideway. Overall contract is about 70% through in terms of expenditures. Next slide. This is just a pie chart to show you. Again, we often report structures and guideway. There are a total of 33 structures in this segment that we must get complete. 17 of those are done, 11 are underway, and 5 are remaining. Next slide. On the guideway side, this is again, I mentioned a 32-mile segment. About 2 miles are fully complete, 18 are well in advance, and about 12 are remaining to be complete. Next slide. Primary risks here, again, it's all tied to some of the third-party stuff that I know Board Member Perret and others have been helping us oversee, manage, and track, and that is tied to things like AT&T relocations that we have in front of us, Union Pacific approvals for crossing applications, work plans, design packages that we have to get through their review process in a timely way to stay on track. Again, these are the risks that we're identifying, making sure these are done in a timely way, and delays to the start of a herning construction if we can't get those approvals done. However, the mitigation strategy that we have in place is designed to ensure we can get those done, and that's where we're working with AT&T and UP on mutually acceptable telecom relocation plan first to make sure we can move forward with the Stanislaus Bridge demolition. If that ends up taking too long, we can pull that demolition out of this contract and do it later without affecting the available guideway to move forward on the project. But that's not a decision we're making yet. It's just a mitigation measure that we'll consider. Continuous improvement, we're working closely with UPRR at a higher executive level to make sure that we get an improved process for timeliness of review, making sure what they get from the contractors in terms of the designs are better. And so we can shorten the review period, outlining project priorities and really focusing on the completion schedule with UP to make sure that we can move forward in a timely way. We continue to contract and work with them and communicate with them all the time. We have focused meetings with the authority, the contractor, UP, City of Fresno to facilitate comment resolution and secure the design approval. And then one thing that's added more recently is we now conduct at the very highest level of the management teams both the contractor, this is Ron Tudor himself, and me at the authority and my senior team, monthly partnering meetings to identify issues, who's got the ball in court on those issues, and then advancing those issues to resolution. And so those are the things that we have in place to assure that we can meet this schedule on CP1. Next slide, please. The utility summary here, again, there's a lot of them here, 992 utilities to move. As of this date, 564 have been moved, 50 are in progress, and we're down to about 178 that we got to get started. And those are scheduled and we're on top of the timing of those to make sure that they're consistent with our construction completion schedule. Next slide. This is just a scorecard. You've seen this before, but it's by type of utility on CP1 in terms of which ones have started, what are in progress, and what's relocated. Sort of a different way to show you the pie chart I just showed you, but this is just by utility type. And that you can see here, there's a lot to do in the telecom area has a lot that we've done, but we've advanced many of those. And I got to say, on CP1, AT&T has been a very good partner, working with them on cooperating and moving forward on these utility relocations. Next slide. Constructed package 2-3. This is in many ways the most complex just because of its size and breadth of this contract. It's a 65-mile stretch in the middle part of the 119 miles. Starts at East American Avenue in Fresno, and then just a 1 mile north of the Tulare-Kern county line. There are 26 grade separations in the counties of Fresno, Tulare, and Kings, including viaducts, underpasses, and overpasses. We are on track for substantial completion in 2026. And again, part of our RBS negotiation with them now, as we resolve some of the very final commercial issues, including those in arbitration, is to see if we can pull that schedule forward to earlier in 2026. And that's what we're working toward. But again, we reported the 26 schedule and the 23 per. We're still on that, and we're trying to pull it as far forward as we can. Next slide. Scorecard here. You've seen this similar to others. 100% design complete. Right away is almost entirely done. Utility relocations, about 80% are finished, approaching 80% of the structures complete or in progress. And then miles of guideway now 3/4 complete or in progress. Overall contract, the expenditure to value is about 72%. Next slide. Just a picture of the structures on this. 49 total structures for CP23. 2 additional structures will begin construction by the end of 2023. Of the 49 structures, 16 are complete, 21 are in progress, and we have 12 remaining to begin. Next slide. Just a guideway snapshot again, 65 miles here. This is a long stretch. 33 of those 65 miles are complete, 16 are underway, and we got about 16 more to commence. Next slide. Primary risks here are really tied to not the right-of-way for our structures and guideway, but some of the right-of-way that we got to complete for some of the utility issues. So there's some potential delays that we are tracking and monitoring and managing relative to right-of-way and land conveyance for utility relocations. These are largely electric transmission grids and irrigation districts. A risk is a delay in the third-party design reviews and approvals, just like we talked about on CP1. Some of the construction, particularly in Nebraska and Monmouth, can be delayed if we don't complete some of the third-party reviews and resolutions that could affect the critical path. And there's a risk of delaying it in obtaining an agreement on the revised baseline schedule. Now, again, this is just laying out what risks are in front of us. We have mitigation plans that we are managing and putting in place on this. The first on working to finalize the right-of-way for the utility relocations. We are actively pursuing the remaining acquisitions impacting all the utility relocations. 98% of the parcels have been delivered to the design builder. And we're working through, including the use of our legal team now, on some of the big remaining ones that affect the critical path, including the reference Vidal property impact. But again, these are things that we have a keen focus on and are working through between right-of-way, third party, and legal. We have established a third-party task force for a more focused effort to negotiate these resolutions. As I said, we're working closely with the Vidal Winery, BNSF, County of Fresno to identify and resolve any long lead items that could impact construction. And we proactively are collaborating with the DFJV, our contractor, to come to an agreement on the revised baseline schedule, but also conducting monthly partnering meetings, just as we do with CP1, including their president of their company and myself and our executive team, to identify issues that need to be resolved to hold schedule. And we started that process a few months ago, and we're on it every month. And so I think that level of communication is extraordinarily helpful in moving things forward. Next slide. Again, you see this in your packets, 701 utilities here to be done. 493 are finished, 66 are in progress, 142 left to go. Next slide. Again, another scorecard on sort of the types of utilities that we are dealing with on 2, 3 versus 1. And you could just see the magnitude of them. A lot of electric left to do, PG&E primarily in this area. And then telecom comes in second, then water and gas are the final ones that we deal with here. But again, roughly on all of CP1, it's about 80 to 82% have been relocated or in the process of being relocated. About 18% are left to go. Next slide. There's some strategic initiatives that I mentioned in this that we're doing. Partnering meetings at the highest level of the organizations have been helpful to describe what's important, the things that we need the teams to address, identifying issues early, and then getting the teams on top of beginning to develop strategies and processes to resolve those issues. And so the partnering meetings with a facilitator to help with that communication has been very, very helpful. We also reorganized the third parties under the leadership of the Director of Real Property, and we've increased resources to advance that third-party utility relocation effort. Also, relative to 2, 3, but across the board, we've implemented an important paradigm shift in construction quality control and inspection. And this was a byproduct I'll talk about in a minute, but it really came out of the stuff we saw in Road 27 some time ago, where we had an issue 2 or 3 years ago with the pre-stressed tension rods that snapped. And as we looked into that, it had us at the executive level look broadly at construction oversight, how we do it, how we assure quality. We brought in new resources to make sure that we're all over that stuff. And I'm very pleased with how we're working with the contractors now to identify issues earlier and then put in place strategies to improve those things. I'll talk about a little bit of those in just a minute. Next slide. So on the quality side, we call it a paradigm shift, but really it was the authority coming off that Road 27 example, reviewing more broadly how we conduct quality oversight, making sure that as the owner, that we have a more direct role in the inspection and supervision of the quality oversight issues. We approved and implemented a quality rollout program that involves us using more of our construction management teams and the authority staff. We brought in new resources from the department on this to help identify issues early, train our staff in exactly what we're looking for in the field, and really make sure that there's objective and independent evidence that is documented and organized to define or describe any issue in the field. And we are also documenting how those issues are solved and resolved as we go forward. We've had extensive trainings of staff at the local level and construction management team to expand our quality control oversight contractor work. And in essence, we're taking in a short description, we're taking the effort on quality oversight out of the contractor's hands and putting it in ours. We're the owners of the things that we build, and between our authority staff and the construction management team, we're using those resources to again identify any issues they see in the field and work closely with the contractor to resolve them in a timely way and make sure we have quality products at the end. So that's essentially what we've been doing in the quality area. Next slide. Again, it's part of a new organizational structure. We brought in Brian Maroney, who did some of this work for Caltrans in years past. Of course, our COO, Bill Casey, has an extensive history at Caltrans with construction issues. So we really asked them to head up this issue to make sure that roles and responsibilities for authority and contractor staff are very clear in this area. We've put in place a construction quality model that, again, relies more on our team to do inspection and supervision on the site. We're making sure that we are approving, identifying all the necessary documentation of as-built work by the engineer of record, that our inspectors prepare a daily inspection report with a coding structure that is linked to the technical criteria requirements. Again, all of this are things that we just sort of took over and said, you know, we want to make sure that all the quality that we get out of the products that are being built are highest in the nation is the goal. And so this is what we've been doing. And I think it's been very helpful. And again, preventing any issues they see in the field from either compounding or even worse, being delayed. One of the things that we do by getting our hands in this early is we make decisions quicker, and that enables the work to progress quicker. So this effort has been very, very good. Next slide. This is one of the success stories. Again, I said sometimes in the field, as you go through things and you bring the oversight team in to look at stuff, you can see if there's any problems with any of the stuff that's being manufactured in the field. And if there is, you get together, you work with the contractor to resolve those issues. So one example of a field success story here is that we ascended the approval of a certain concrete mix because as they were pouring the concrete, it wasn't flowing through the rebar correctly. But instead of waiting for that to, be installed and be a problem later, we worked with the construction management team to hire a dedicated source inspector, work collaboratively with the contractor to update the mix design and the placement plan, made quick and timely decisions on how to do this, and got to the proper quality before the stuff gets installed. And that's how this is supposed to work. And so it's been very effective for us. Next slide. Milestone achievements. This is most of the things I think but it was a very good year for us in 2023. I want to say that the dedication of the team and everybody pulling and rowing in the same direction. We set a record for the number of structures completed in the calendar year in 2023, 10 in the Central Valley. We relocated to date 202 utilities for construction package 1 through 4. But I'm going to steal some thunder later, I think, and just say our goal this year for 2023 was to relocate 239. And that would have been an all-time high for the authority in a single year. I think through October, we're at 250. We still have December to add, and we had a very robust November. So we're really, again, credit to Dennis Kim, his team, and all the folks he works with in the field to identify the priority utilities, monitor and track what we're doing on them, and see us move those. And again, we wanted to have the best year this year on this, and we blew through that goal number pretty substantially. So kudos to the team. And then advanced construction act. We did advance our construction activity by 100% more in 2023 than compared to 2021 in terms of dollars and structures that we're moving through. So a good year for us and just advancing the project, and kudos to the team for that. Next slide. We achieved a new weekly record for every week we look at the daily number of workers that are out on the construction site. I think it was October, we hit 1612, which was a single day high for the authority. Our average is about 1,500 a day right now. Our safety record is something to be extremely proud of. We maintain an excellent safety record, accident severity rate of 1.3 versus a construction average in the state of 2.8. So about half of the average. Next slide. Just a quick update on our station design work, which I know you guys have been involved with. We executed that contract with the board's approval in March of 23, awarded it to Foster and Partners and Arup as a joint venture. Preliminary design has commenced for the 4 Central Valley stations, Merced, Fresno, Kings Tulare, and Bakersfield. The concept designs were submitted in November, and the board of directors will be briefed fully on these in February. We've started some dialogue with each of the cities on a couple of option designs, and then we'll come back to the board to talk about where we are in February 2024. Schematic design submission expected in late summer of 2024. Coordination and outreach with local stakeholders is ongoing. And the Fresno Historic Depot seismic retrofit, for which we received a federal grant earlier, is expected completion date of December of 2024. So things are advancing at the station design level as well. Next slide. Environmental updates. I'm almost done. Environmental updates. You know, when I started here, we had about 119 miles environmentally cleared, and we really put an emphasis with the board's direction and approval of first adopting preferred alternatives for all of San Francisco to Los Angeles and Anaheim, and then working through those things in a very focused way. We were granted a big help from the federal government in what was called NEPA assignment that allowed us to move the NEPA and CEQA processes concurrently. And through that, we've now cleared 422 miles of that phase one system between San Francisco and LA. And I'm very pleased that in the first quarter, I think March, April, we'll come back to the board to approve, to certify the environmental documents for Palmdale to Burbank. And that will mean that all of downtown San Francisco to all of downtown LA is environmentally cleared. And that's an important milestone because as we advance the construction work and get ready for operations in the valley, the hope is that we can continue to do pre-construction stuff on the extensions. We're still building a project that ultimately we want to be San Francisco to LA. Getting that environmental work done enables us to have more conversations with the communities about how the system will work, what it will look like, what the design will be, helps us refine costs as we work through there, and really is important to help us advance the program. So very pleased with that. And then, of course, this year, south of LA to Anaheim, we heard from stakeholders with some concerns about our initial proposal there and what it would require us to do in the Inland Empire on some freight offsets. So we listened to that community input, and we shifted. We did a supplemental alternatives analysis, dropping the need to do some of the things that the community did not want in the Inland Empire. And we'll be back to the board, I think, with the preferred alternatives in January or February of 24 to move forward on that. So again, the environmental stuff is really been one of the great things that we've advanced in a very timely way. We've gotten a lot done in a relatively short amount of time in the last couple of years. Next slide. That's it. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or move on.
Jim, any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. First, Brian, thank you for this year-end report. I mean, it's great. It's phenomenal to see all the great work that staff has done this year to move this project forward. And again, congratulations to you and our Chairman Richards and all the folks involved in getting us that $3 billion. That was pretty amazing. The question I have, it's usually I ask Mr. Kim to speak, but I'm sure you can cover the question that I have. You know, going back to page 16 and 17 of your report, as you all know, several months ago, we started focusing on the third-party issues, and I think the team that Mr. Kim has put together is pretty phenomenal. And I think one of my questions a few months back was taking a look at those utilities that were either in progress or not yet started. Those still today total 428. So I think the important question for Mr. Kim a few months back was, well, of those 428, what is it that we need completed in a timely manner to achieve our substantial completion date of 12/25 for CP1? So he's put together a chart and something that they're monitoring, and I don't know if you have that before you, but I just want from your perspective, Brian, tie in Mr. Kim's more abbreviated report of what he needs to have done to your primary risk and risk mitigations underway section on 16. Is there anything at this point that you're seeing on the horizon that would prevent us from achieving that December 25 substantial completion date?
Well, I want to be clear on a couple of things. One, the substantial completion date for CP1 is November 26th, just as we said in the business plan, in the PER and as we've negotiated with the contractor. So
November 26th. Okay, I apologize.
Crystal clear on that. And then secondly, I am familiar with the document that Dennis Kim provided to you at your request. And really what that is, board members, is Director Perea was interested in really the issues that are part of the critical path. And so we have 4 or 5 construction elements that are critical path on CP1. And that ties to a number of utility relocations that have to get done by certain dates to make sure we hit those. And we've shared that with Director Prey. We can share that with all the board members. But that is an example of what I'm talking about broadly when I say what's improved so much is the identification of the risks, the monitoring of how we're doing on it, and then the reporting about where we are on it. And I think what that indicates and that what that chart just showed you, Henry, is that, sorry, Director Perea, is that the third-party management team is tracking this stuff closely. We're working closely with the folks in the field, our construction leads on CP1, and that we are managing those key issues that need to be resolved. I think, as I said in the construction management or the construction update, I do think the things around UP approvals at Herndon Avenue are going to be key. We got to move those through in as timely way as possible. And again, we have expanded communications with UP on making sure we can do that. We want to do it with less rounds of review from UP, and so that's something we're working with them on. But I think that is one of the key areas that we got to make sure we stay on to make sure that all of this stuff continues to move forward in a timely way. And then just there are several, it's been described to me as almost spaghetti, but there are several utility lines at Church Avenue that we have to sequence properly to do them in the right order and work through those. And we've started early on those in some ways. And those are the things that we're going to have to continue to stay on top of, manage and monitor and report. But again, what I'm satisfied with right now is that we are, the management team and Dennis's team working with the construction field team is on top of the issues. And now it's about us convincing and working with third parties to move these through in a timely way.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think, like I said earlier, I think Mr. Kim and his team's done a fantastic job, and I thank him for all that work. Just, and I don't know if this document was sent to all the board members, but it should. I may have a special interest in it, but it's something we all should be concerned about because we don't want to miss any more deadlines. So, but thank you. I appreciate the report.
It. And Director Prey, I'll just say I do appreciate your focus on this because it is, it's helping us make sure we're focused on it as well. And so I appreciate that leadership. And again, I think what you're seeing in that document is that the team is on top of the issues and managing those through. And so
absolutely. Thank you.
We'll continue to update you on that. Thanks.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question.
Say again.
I had a question. It's Anthony. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So very similar to what Director Perea laid out. So first of all, I want to +1 to his acknowledgement and congratulations and thanks to Mr. Kelly and his whole team and you, Mr. Chairman, for all the extraordinary work. I know seen and unseen that got us to this significant statement of the federal partnership that we have. So again, kudos for that. And then also similar to, I just, as I was listening to your presentation, it was very helpful to see what I think what I've taken away from that is the increased pace of progress that we've seen this year compared to prior years. And Henry, Director Perea drilled down on one aspect of this, but from a big picture standpoint, Brian, what you've laid out today, where does that position us going forward for meeting the overall project schedules that we've laid out in the business plan and in the project update report? Are we on track? Are we doing better? Are we, what's the, given where we, and I understand the risks, and the mitigations that you have in place, but point in time where we are now, how are we doing?
When we put out the 2023 project update report, we reset the construction completion dates for the construction of the Central Valley. We identified an initial operating date for all of the 171 miles. And that target and that redefinition in the project update report is what drives what then we do every day. And so, we're focused on that objective at the end of the day. and getting to that operational segment. And so we're bringing procurements before you and the board in a way that makes sure we can advance different project elements to stay on track with that. We're constrained by budget, as everybody knows. This federal grant that is rumored is extremely helpful in making sure that we can move forward on parts of that goal to continue to advance the work. And so versus the project update report, I think what I will report today and what I expect to be saying in the 2024 business plan is that in terms of the construction of the 119 in the Valley, we are still on the project update report schedule. We did get hit by, as I said, some rains in 23 that affected us a little bit, but we're still on the schedules we identified there. And we are still taking actions to stay within our initial operating segment window for the full operation of 171. Now, I want to be clear, and I think it's important that everybody understands this. The grant is very helpful in helping us move forward. It does not solve all problems, right? We still need to go back and stabilize all funding to make sure that we can complete all the things we need to complete to get this done. The biggest task that it's no secret, but our only source of ongoing revenue from the state does expire in 2030, and we're going to have to work closely with the administration and the legislature on making sure that that is extended, because you're going to need this funding over a long period of time to build the project beyond the Valley. And so those are things that we're going to have to come back to. But what the grant is, in my view, and I think I'll get into this in the next report, but it is an expression of the federal partnership that just says we're with you. We understand what you're trying to achieve. We're your partner in this. We're willing to reinvest in it, and I think there's an expression of confidence in how we're doing our business. And so that's what it means to me. And that's a long-winded answer, Anthony, but really we're online with the PER schedule.
Any other questions for CEO Kelly? Brian, thank you. I think what we're going to do now, if you're done with this, okay. Mr. Kelly's going to have to leave us shortly. We'll go now to the CEO report, which is item number 5 on the agenda that you have.
Just waiting for that to be pulled up, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry?
I'm just waiting for them to pull it up. This is the CEO report, item number 5. Okay. Again, this is an opportunity just to provide some other updates more broadly to the program about some things we've done from the last board meeting to this one. The biggest thing was, as you know, we've been bombarding the board with various procurements, and that's all a part of us moving forward on the program and getting the right procurements in place so we can deliver that goal and that objective by 2030 and 2033. So part of this is communicating more frequently and more deeply with industry. We had an industry awareness day on November 15th. We held it at the other auditorium that we often use at the Department of Public Health. And the purpose was to provide information on the current and upcoming rail procurements aimed at delivering all of the operational segment. It was the first in-person industry event since the COVID-19. We had 343 people attend, both in person and virtually. And I think one of the things you will see us do as we go forward on some of the more complex procurements, for example, getting into the construction of the tracking systems, is you'll likely see us put out draft RFQs or RFPs and have industry give us feedback before those go final. So this is part of a deeper dive and lengthier communication and more intense communication with industry to put together the documents in a way that gets the responses we're looking for. Next slide. Just on that same thing, there was a question and answer session that was held at the event, addressing both in-person and virtual questions, a series of online resources that was provided, and those written questions and answers will be made available publicly on our website. Next slide. I did want to update the board, and maybe this should have been in the construction update, but as you know, as we're working through the construction on the 119, we've also advanced the design work for the extensions, both to Merced and Bakersfield. I just wanted to report to the board that design work is going very well. We're on schedule for the draft configuration footprint to be done by the end of this year on both extensions with both contractors, both to Bakersfield and to Merced. The team is reviewing those recommendations now. We've hosted events with the design teams, community open houses and workshops in Chowchilla and Merced on November 8th and 15th to provide project updates to the community, take input from the community. As you know, we received a CRISI grant of $202 million to expand some construction work heading south toward Bakersfield in the city of Shafter for 6 grade separations. And so that's an area we want to see that design work pick up some pace. We started monthly coordination meetings with the FRA on November 14th about how we'll put those grant dollars to use and get that work done. Next slide. In terms of what's coming up in 24 on these extensions, the authority, you may have heard, we applied for a $3 billion federal state partnership grant. It is rumored to go very well. I will say that one of the specific expenditure items in that grant was to bring the 30% design to 100% and to allow us to start right-of-way acquisitions and some utility relocation work. And the grant specifically allows us to do that. And so again, this is important. We will come back to the board in early 24 to move that design from 30% to 100% on each of those segments. So on task, on schedule on that, and looking forward to advancing that design work further. Next slide. The business plan, I just want to touch on it today. There'll be a much more thorough briefing to the board on it in January. But remember, every even-numbered year, we have a business plan due. We put a draft out in February. It gets public comment. It gets comment from the legislature. You guys get to hear from the public on it. And then the final goes out a couple months later in May after we've taken all that public comment and there's direction on change. We'll come back to the board with a much more detailed kind of review in January of what we're talking about in this report, take board input, and again, move from draft to final between February and the May 1st due date to the legislature. I've just got a couple of quick headline issues. Again, I expect it to say a lot like what it said in the project update report about schedules in the valley and where we are. I'm not expecting to make any major budgetary or schedule changes for the 119 miles in the valley. We will identify risks that we are dealing with, that we have to manage to make sure we stay on schedule. So I think you'll see that in there. And obviously the award of the grant enables us to advance the work on the Merced and Bakersfield sections in a way that we just couldn't without it. And so both completing the 119, advancing that work, and specifically starting to buy electrified high-speed trains is all the things that this grant allows us to do. And again, from my perspective, just 2 comments on it. One, I think it's an extraordinary expression from the federal government, an understanding that first, the 119 miles that we first got money for wasn't a good enough operation run, that we need a better one, and that they understood that. They see what we're trying to achieve, and they've committed to be our partners. And I think that is a huge thing for the project. Again, I think that federal partnership means we can go back and continue to work with them and gain additional help and resources along the way to achieve what we're trying to achieve. The other thing I got to say, because I told the staff this yesterday, I want to share it with the board. When I started on this project in 2018, all the questions I got from folks about me taking this job was, how are you going to get new money to the program? And my answer in 2018 and often in 2019 and for much of 2020 was, we're not even ready to ask yet, because we really had to get definitional. We had to show progress. We had to define in some way what we're trying to do differently. And then we had to just do the grind, the work to advance it. And this is where I just want to say, it is great kudos to the team, the management team of the authority, and all the rank and file workers and consultant teams that work on the small things to allow us to advance the project. I will say, Mr. Chairman, you did a great job of acknowledging the political support that we got and the leadership we got on this grant. I really view it as my job and the management team's job to perform well enough so you can get that political support. And I think when I got here, we weren't in a place to get it. And I think it's been hard earned. It has been hard earned. And I want to thank the staff, everybody who works on the project. I want to thank the board because we had to come to the board and do difficult things, difficult changes in how we're going to operate, what we're going to approve first, how we're going to do this system that was largely defined in law. And I just think what we've gotten to is a place where people are willing to reinvest in us. And that's a collective success for the board and this team. So that's all I want to say about that. Next slide. Oh, a video. I don't even have to talk anymore. Fantastic. At the end of every year, we do like to try to, remind everybody where we've progressed on the project. And so I believe this is going to be our top 10 things in 2023 that we did. No David Letterman on this, but with that, let's see if we can run the video.
2023 was another big year for the California High-Speed Rail Authority and the California High-Speed Rail Project as we continue to progress toward changing the face of transportation in California. Here are our top 10 moments of the year. Number 10, winner, winner, winner. The Authority was the winner of several prestigious awards this year, being recognized for its diversity and inclusion. Among the awards, the Rosa Parks Diversity Award, the Women in Transportation International Employer of the Year, WTS San Francisco Bay Area Chapter Employer of the Year, and the APA California Northern Section's 2023 Excellence Award for Advancing Diversity and Social Change. Number 9, record outreach. Across the state, the Authority hosted and participated in a record number of outreach events in 2023, reaching thousands of future riders and employees statewide. Those events included hosting the American Planning Association Conference in Fresno, the Small Business Diversity Day, and recently, an industry outreach forum previewing upcoming procurements. Number 8, moving from construction to operation. As the program moves from the construction phase to the operation phase, design has advanced on the interiors of our trains and the design for 4 future Central Valley stations. Community outreach will continue into the new year. Number 7, helping in a historic flood. After record rains in the early part of the year, the Authority and construction contractor Dragados Flatiron Joint Venture worked with local agencies to provide assistance to nearby communities to tackle the flooding caused by last winter's historic rainfall. Number 6, 10 completed structures. The Authority and its design builders completed 10 structures across all construction packages in 2023, including the Cedar Viaduct, the southern gateway into Fresno. Number 5, job creation. In 2023, the Authority saw a record 1,612 workers dispatched in a single day, and overall, the 10,000 labor jobs created milestone recrossed in early 23. Number 4, labor milestones. This year we marked some major milestones with our labor partners. 2023 marked 10 years since we entered into a community benefits agreement with the building trades. And in November, we reached a historic milestone, entering into a memorandum of understanding with 13 rail labor unions for the operations of the nation's first high-speed rail project. Number 3, Construction Package 4 nearly complete. The 22-mile stretch from the Kings to Larry County line to Poplar Avenue, known as Construction Package 4, is largely complete. 11 structures are either done or in the final stages, as is the 22 miles of guideway. Number 2, procurements. Getting an operational railroad means procuring trains, track, and electrification. These efforts are now underway in 2023. Industry engagement has been strong, and we look forward to finalizing these efforts in the new year. Number 1, federal grants come in for high-speed rail. Thanks to historic funding made possible by the Biden administration, California High-Speed Rail is bringing in funding from numerous grants. In 2023, we celebrated award of a RAISE grant for the Fresno station, a Chrissy grant for the grade separations in Shafter, and are waiting for news any day on our biggest grant request, the Federal State Partnership Grant. And that's a year of progress for high-speed rail.
There you have it.
Thank you, Brian. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now move on to what was item number 2, which is the AECOM program update. So are you up there, Alicia? There you go.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay right here because I have staff coming up. Board members, this is item number 2, in which we are returning to the board at your request to report on the AECOM floor contract. When you approved that contract a year ago, you asked that we come back annually and report on 2 specific areas: our small business progress under that contract and our conflicts review work under that contract. And so I will turn this to Katrina Blair, our chief of the process and program development branch, who heads up our small business work, and Tanya Southern, an attorney in my office, who will report on these areas. And I think if we can move to the next slide, and perhaps the next, we'll let Katrina start on the small business portion.
Thank you, Alicia. Good morning, Chair Richards and board members. And as Alicia stated, I will be doing a small business overview briefly, and then I'll turn it over to Tanya to cover her portion of the presentation. Okay, next slide. Next slide, please. Well, until they get to the slide, I'll just go ahead. The small business team works with PDS and other authority primes to ensure that the small business, disabled veteran business enterprise, and disadvantaged enterprise businesses are given every practicable opportunity to participate on this project. So we accomplish this by monitoring compliance from contract award to contract closeout. And the small business compliance team begins every contract with a kickoff meeting where we discuss goals, expectations, and compliance requirements. Our team held a kickoff meeting with PDS, and we had an opportunity to meet with their leadership and their small business officer, who has a robust background in small business, DVBE, and DBE compliance, which is extremely helpful in navigating the SV, DVBE, DBE landscape. Furthermore, the PDS must comply with the Small and Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program that was approved in 2012. So they have a 30% overall small business goal, which is inclusive of DBE, 10% goal for DBE, and a 3% goal for DVBE. Next slide. So payment and utilization are the 2 areas where the small business compliance team directs their focus. So for monitoring of payments, we're doing a few things. In September, the authority implemented a compliance management system that we call B2G Now. This system tracks prime payments and notifies subcontractors and subconsultants, giving them the opportunity to validate the payments that they receive from the prime. So this system is designed to alert the authority if payment has not been validated, so that we can take immediate action. The small business team then contacts the small business directly to confirm payment and reaches out to the prime directly to resolve if we need to. Additionally, PDS and other authority primes must submit monthly compliance forms that detail payments made to small business DVBE and DBE firms. And as an added measure of transparency, we also post contractor payment reports on the authority's homepage and small business page. So the second area where the team focuses is utilization. The PDS small business officer has a standing meeting with the authority's small business advocate and myself to discuss compliance and efforts the PDS is making to achieve the SB, DVBE, and DBE goals. In this meeting, we do discuss strategy, risks, and ways to mitigate those risks. And the PDS also provides a monthly narrative that details outreach efforts and strategies to increase participation and the ways in which they keep their small businesses informed and educated about internal practices such as proper submittal of invoices for timely payments. Next slide. As of September 2023 reporting period, the PDS is on target based on their total expended values. The small business team is working closely with the PDS small business officer to assist with increasing the DVBE numbers, which are not quite where we want them to be right now. But we accomplished this by providing PDS with an outreach platform where we partner together for workshops and that detail how to do business with PDS. In addition, the PDS Small Business Officer attends BAC meetings, which are held 6 times per year, and has presented a couple of times this year at the BAC meetings and has reported on their goals and efforts to meet their goals. More recently, the PDS Small Business Officer participated in the Authority's Small Business and Diversity Resources Fair and hosted an exhibit table and held several matchmaking sessions with interested businesses. This first year has been a successful partnership with PDS, and we're looking forward to continuing this partnership and their efforts to increase participation. So this concludes my portion of the presentation, and I'll be happy to take any questions before I turn it over to Tanya.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, board members and Chair Richards. My name is Tanya Southern, and as Chief Counsel Fowler said, I am an attorney in the legal office for a little more than 8 years now. My portion of this presentation will be on the conflict of interest compliance of the program delivery support consultant. I'm happy to report that we have been on top of this process, and I supported the procurement for the PDS consultant, and we executed the contract in November of last year, and I have been providing legal support with other lawyers for the program delivery support contract as well. So I'm well versed in this contract and the compliance issues. We, in response to what the board requested, we not only are complying with the organizational conflict of interest policy that was updated this June, but we also have contract compliance, the organizational conflict of interest, as well as a mitigation effort for conflicts. It's called the Conflict Mitigation Plan. It is a new provision that was implemented for this contract at the request of board members to ensure that we are on top of it, engaging collaboratively with the program delivery support consultant, and have a look ahead approach that isn't reactive but proactive. The slide, I'll go ahead and go to the next slide. We'll be on this one for a while because it details all 6 of the contract requirements. This is that provision that I was talking about in our scope of work. The first is identification of the key personnel and additional expertise resources, their companies and their proposed locations for work. This way, if there is a mitigation that's required, we also understand where their physical location will be for the work, and if necessary, what the mitigation measures will be. The plan identified, and again, I'll start, just back up a little. We worked with AECOM, Floor, and their council really collaboratively and got into the weeds about this plan development, as well as the reporting structure. The council that are the lead, we'll talk about it a little later, for AECOM and Floor are getting monthly reports from inside their organization. And they're really working on being proactive, especially AECOM is quite prolific throughout not only the state, but the nation. So it's a nice way to ensure that we are avoiding actual, when we have potential conflict issues, we're working to avoid any actual conflicts through mitigation. The plan that we worked on identified the requisite key personnel, and when they came in, if they were working on a project that involved the same contractors, we had some that worked with Jacobs, some that worked with Tudor. We either had them stop working on the project, or we had them implement some type of wall to ensure that that there wasn't a problem working on, say, CP23 as well as their prior work. The second contract provision requirement was a description of the reporting relationships of each of the staff. So the plan requires that AECOM and Floor's principal in charge and deputy principal in charge take responsibility, and they have all the key personnel and additional expertise reporting to them. They identify any potential issues that could arise, potential conflicts or actual conflicts, and they have them report on the project, and we would mitigate before they come on if there is an issue. And again, authority staff and authority attorneys have worked with staff for AECOM Floor, as well as the council for AECOM and Floor. The third, and I'd say this is probably the biggest maybe meat of the provision, is number 3. It's a description of methods to prevent, restrict, and disassociate the consultant staff from other projects outside of the authority's program that may create a potential or actual organizational conflict of interest. And in here, in addition to the plan, as part of the monitoring of it, the consultant is preparing and providing supplemental reports. So in addition to the base plan, we get a quarterly report. And I told you before that the attorneys were working with the consultant and getting monthly updates. They then provide quarterly updates to the authority. And we use those. The last one was, part of this plan to make sure we report to the board on this annual basis. In addition to those, we have supplemental reports. To date, there have been 5. And that's when they identify either projects where they've worked with, most notably the design builders, but it could be other projects where their personnel or staff, especially key personnel, have worked, say, with Jacobs or Tudor or other entities. In this, we have 5 supplemental reports. 2 of them were related to projects that are related. San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority is one of our partnering agencies. And although our interests are mostly aligned, there will be places where the interests will be somewhat divergent. We've identified the NEPA assignment and NEPA work of AECOM that potentially down the road could create a problem. So AECOM is working on the MITSI program. If you're not familiar with that, it is I have to look at it, put my glasses on, make sure I can read it. The Merced Integrated Track Connector, that's MITSI. And they're also AECOM is working with the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authorities on the Madera station. So again, we've identified potential areas. We've put in place mitigation. The main mitigation is that the teams will be different, working on the authorities project and working on the Madera station and the MITSI project. So we can avoid any actual conflicts of interest. And we have had 3 staff that have worked on projects that involve the same entities or that are in the design build. We have there was going to be a direct potential and turned into probably an actual conflict. We asked, the work was almost done. We asked that that person would be disengaged from the other project so that we didn't have an actual conflict on this project. So we've been very proactive. We've worked really well. We have to compliment AECOM and Floor for taking this seriously, for engaging in really making sure that we understand the issues, that we act proactively, and that we are able to report to the board that we are taking this seriously and avoiding actual conflicts. Just a last couple of issues. Number 4, contract compliance. It's a description of how the consultant will control the information relative to the authority's operations. And AECOM and Floor have implemented security controls and a tracking system to ensure whoever has access to PDS information has to be approved on specific servers. So they have implemented security controls that help us mitigate or avoid this issue. The second to last provision is that the consultant's process to promote awareness and to instruct the staff of the importance and impartiality of its role in preventing bias, fraud, waste, and abuse, and including call it an upgraded ethics training. So we're really pleased to report that AECOM floor has taken steps to ensure that all staff have a copy of the plan. They are aware of the provisions, and they are also understanding their obligations and responsibilities. In addition, the consultant has implemented a live web-based conflict of interest training for this program, in addition to the efforts they already were undertaking. Lastly, for the contract provisions, the consultant's process to assess the effectiveness and the conflict mitigation plans and to address the issues is one of the requirements under the contract. And AECOM has appointed, as I alluded to a little earlier, one of their ethics counsel as the lead for their plan officer, and Floor Enterprises, Inc. has also appointed a counsel as their plan officer. So we have attorneys on both sides really taking this seriously and watching for ethical issues that could arise. They are responsible for monitoring overall compliance with the plan measures and reporting to us. They also are undertaking these quarterly reviews in addition to the supplemental reports that we receive. So I'm giving all of this very detailed information and probably a little dry and not as exciting as $3 billion, but we wanted you to know we're taking it, we have taken it seriously. We continue to monitor this, and we will get quarterly updates, if not more often, these supplemental plans. So next slide. Lastly, just to wrap it up, the authority and AECOM are committed to ensuring that potential or actual conflict of interest issues are immediately addressed as they are identified, and it's going to be for the life of the agreement. Once these issues are identified, both staff and the attorneys for AECOM and the authority are collaboratively working to implement mitigation measures that sufficiently address any potential or actual conflict of interest issues. To date, we're pleased to report that in this collaboration, we have enacted mitigation measures and we have not conflicted any individual out from working on the project. So that being said, if you have any questions, you can tell I'm a little nervous, so I appreciate it.
No, you did very well. Thank you, Ms. Southern. Any questions or comments from my members?
No, I just want to compliment you and for your report and the thoroughness of the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? And I'll echo what Director Camacho said. This was a very important issue from last year, and I'm glad that you followed up on it as we've requested. And there's no reason to be nervous. So,
Next year I won't be.
yeah. All right. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll very briefly touch base on the Finance and Audit Committee meeting earlier this morning. I'll not mention anything on the Central Valley update. You had a far more detailed presentation here in the board meeting a few moments ago. Just on the finance side of things, these numbers are as of September the 30th. Total cash that the authority had available, 2.9 billion, of which 2.5 is from cap and trade, 408 million is from Proposition 1A. On the cap and trade auctions that occurred, the August auction are not included in this numbers. In that August auction, we received or will receive about 217 million. The November auction, we will receive approximately 356 million. Neither of those, as I mentioned, are in the numbers that I mentioned a few moments ago. The admin budget, we report this because we monitor the cap for administration costs. We've consistently remained below that cap. We spent 5.8 million in the month of September. Our capital outlay budget in September, we spent or invested 123.6 million, of which 86.8 million were design builder expenditures. And our contingency summary, the number remains at about 1.6 billion in contingency. divided among the three packages, construction packages, 73 million for CP4 and CP1 and 2, the remainder, one at 752 and CP23 at 792 million. With regards to one final item, I'll go ahead and relieve you so you don't have to do this. There had been a request from board members that there ought to be at least an item on each board meeting for board member comments. We will now reflect that at the end of each meeting. I just want to ask our chief counsel to provide some direction on this, and let me just address the things that Alicia provided. So this new agenda item is an opportunity for board members to comment on events or activities they have participated in or will participate in, and other updates relevant to the project, or make requests of staff. Bullet point 2, under Bagley-Keene rules, it is not possible for the board to engage in discussions related to new business brought up by board members, including discussions, deliberations, or actions on topics not specifically identified in the agenda or on the agenda. The newly updated Attorney General's Guide to Bagley-Keene includes the following guidance. During a meeting, state body members may engage in limited conversations not appearing in the agenda, such as reporting on personal activities or interacting with public speakers and staff for informational or procedural purposes, including asking to add a business matter to a future agenda. They may not, however, deliberate on any substantive policy matter not on the agenda. So that'll be the guidance that we will provide the necessary oversight to ensure that we conform with. And so board members will now note at the end of every board meeting, there will be a time for board member comments. Since you're probably all taken by surprise from this, we will probably not have any today. Is that correct? Excellent. We don't. That being the case, one of our shorter meetings, but one of the more important meetings in moving this project forward. We thank you all for attending. We wish you the best of holidays and a Happy New Year, and we'll look forward to seeing you in January. With that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.